Record in three, two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, their stories, their lessons, put it down in a book and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny in the process. Obviously, the people who read the books too, their lives are going to be better in the process too. So that's also one of the benefits of writing a book. It's to complete the hero's journey, right? You serve the many, for service to the many leads to greatness. And if you want to write a book out there, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. We can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you have a book that's already done, you want to generate leads with it, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. Now, you guys who listen to this podcast, most likely you're an entrepreneur looking to start or grow a business. And therefore, you really need to manage yourself. You need to become self-aware, but also build the schedule that you want. You need to get the best out of what you are given, right? The body of yours, the time you're given. And that's why this podcast is going to be perfect for you. The book that we're talking about today is called Making Light Work of Workday. We have the author today with us, Stephen Slevin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'm really pleased to do this, and I'm really kind of pleased everything you said there about encouraging authors out and to come back and really have a think about the knowledge that we've got and sharing that knowledge. And I think there's a lot of knowledge in people that comes out in different ways, in models and templates and various things. But I can't really reiterate how much the book has been a success for me, and has transformed my business. So right on it with books.
That's great. Yeah. Once you write it, you're like, why did I wait so long to ever write this? Now it's opened up doors. It's given me a new identity. I'm a different person, but also you probably hear from the market of how much it changes their life. So it's in your best interest. It's your moral obligation to give back. I like how you added that. So what made you want to write it? And if you can give a quick little background on where you come from and how you ended up here, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Yeah, no problem at all. So I think, look, for myself personally, I've been in this sort of ERP, payroll, HR space, if you like, for over 30 years. A lot of people out there, are in that HR function or payroll function, or have seen a legacy of change, Mike. The one thing that we're all experiencing right now is that digital fifth revolution, right? Which is, all about SaaS software, and we're seeing so much of AI in all
I'm
of
in
these
that
places.
world. Absolutely. Yep.
You got it. So I think, what I did was that legacy for me has kind of disappeared, and platforms have changed. And one in particular, which is a US company called Workday, has really hit the market hard. So 10 years ago, probably a little bit longer now, 12 years ago, Workday formed. They formed in a beautiful little town called Truckee in Sacramento, some place around there. And the two guys that did it, Dave Duffield and Anil, decided that they were going to break away from PeopleSoft. We're a huge US worldwide kind of Oracle sort of size tier one. And they had the real thought and vision to sort of specialize in a new platform, which at the time we were hearing these lovely words like cloud and SaaS, all these things like software as a service. Those two guys really started out, and they built this amazing product, Mike. It's a fantastic. Just to give you some stats there, in the last 10, 12 years, they've cornered 65% of the Fortune 500 companies. They started out in HR. They built through HR to payroll, into finance, into ERP. And they've done that by collecting, great people around, developers, others in the market, Mike. And yeah, they've got a tier one product. You think about those big companies like Facebook, the FANGs, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they're all on Workday across. So for me, I found myself just over about, again, decade ago when these guys were coming out, what's this new product? Found myself implementing for the first time, Mike. Really strange way, a lot of work process and real kind of engineering around security and amazing kind of data sets and things. And then as I transformed through that and I became just like an implementer, I realized that I wanted to share, Mike. I got to a situation where I was thinking there's a lot of people in market, and there's 16,000 Workday customers worldwide, an ecosystem of nearly 4 or 5 billion a year. But there was a lot of questions coming back, Mike, from customers, and to think, well, how does this work, and does Workday do this, and all those things. And I sat down one day, and like all of us, got hit by COVID in 2020, And I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book and I'm going to share my experiences. I'm going to share real case studies. And I was kind of, fueled by a book I'd read by Daniel Priestley. We've all read it, The Digital Entrepreneur. That was one that I'd read, an American author, sorry, Australian author who talked about, you've got to get your knowledge out there in market and use a book as a real kind of way of pulling your insights.
Yeah.
So go
And
on,
so
Mike.
real quick, Workday is the program, guys. And can anybody use Workday?
No, Mike, it's a really good question. So, Workday is really kind of aimed at the top tier market. Give you an understanding. We're talking millions here for a license, millions to implement it, and millions to support it. It's not, if the way that I say in the book, the way I give it analogy, and as you can tell from my voice, I'm from England, but it's an Aston Martin. Okay,
Got it.
it's not your kind of regular car, right? It's an Aston Martin Ferrari to drive. So unfortunately, not everybody can afford it, but these big companies that Workday have announced something amazing just recently. Actually, they're saying that over 50% of their customers now are 1,000 employees or less. When I started, Mike, these were people 100,000 staff, right? So they're
Wow.
definitely bringing the software set down and trying to get into that medium enterprise for sure. But I think, look, the passion back for me, Mike, to come back on why I wrote this, and I, share this with you openly. I never imagined writing a book in the first place. It never crossed my mind, but good friends around you, and we're surrounded by those, said, look, you've got this amazing knowledge. Why don't you do something with it? And so, one of the driving factors for me, Mike, and it's what I did with the book, is I'm a big supporter of the charity MNDA, motor neurons disease. I watched some videos over time and I was horrified by what that disease can do to a human being, and even, a young age to an old age, Mike, it destroys you and there is no known cure for it whatsoever. And I was kind of fueled by how do I get this kind of balance between I want to share with the workday world my knowledge, but I also want to give something back. And so, Mike, what I decided to do and what really fueled me on about this was I wrote the book and I really dedicated it to the workday community. But the good news, is it sold more than 4,000 or 5,000 copies, probably 5,000 if we are today. And 100% of that, Mike, has gone to that charity MNDA, which I'm
Wow.
really proud about.
That's
So
awesome. Congrats, by the way. Man, for putting that in place and doing so much good. That's awesome, dude.
yeah, yeah. No, it's the best thing, Mike. It's the best thing that I've done. But I think, coming back, to that fundamental, a lot of people listening in here say, well, why did you do that? What made you fuel that on? Um, I'm so passionate about that workday eco space and about getting it right. I really believe in the product. And, I write about this in the book, Mike, as well. A lot of the problems that people have with workday is not software related, Mike. It's more orientated around have you got the right governance and people setups? And it boils down to people, right? You only get the best out of these products when you've got the right people and people who really have got a passion want to drive it. So I really wanted to bring that space out. And in the book, I wrote about topics about this that I've had people come back to me all over the world. I've amazing that the spread it's got. Every far region when you see the sort of sales stats around saying, look, we found something inside your book that gives us something that we're having a problem with workday right now. And I say, Mike, to say to everybody out there that knowledge that you share, and don't be frightened to share it because it's good information. What you do is you get that bounce back from it and you get people calling you, whether it be through YouTube or it's through LinkedIn or emailing you even from the book, even the links within the book. And for me, Mike, that's led to me being able to really choose which workday customers I really want to work with, especially the ones that are what I call the problem children. And that's really helped me to help those customers to give them that added advantage and give them something other than the book. So I love it. I still love it today. I'm 10 years later and I still love that workday ecosystem.
I'm looking at your bio, by the way. You kind of brushed over a few things, but Steven Slevin has worked in both HR and payroll for over 30 years. He founded founded his first textile business at the age of 29 and is now angel investing in more than 30 startups, right? It's probably way more. It's different since you put this book out, right? So he first
Yeah.
encountered Workday in 2010 and is certified through a Workday SI partner, and
SI.
2020
Yeah.
co-founded Lightwork Global with Daniel Dorr to deliver
Yep.
Workday with a focus on business transformation projects. So the act of angel investing, you are an entrepreneur at heart, but you also help others create businesses. So just tell us a little bit about why you got into that and just the being in the world of entrepreneurship. There's nothing more exciting. Am I right?
Absolutely right. I think the fuel for me is I love all these startups that are going around, and they've got great ideas and they're trying to focus everything. And I think, Mike, what you just said to me, my passion a little bit has been around getting involved in those some of the sort of Google early startups, some of the workshops that's been going on with Google, and I've come in as an investor to listen and to the pitches that are going through, and I love that enthusiasm you get with young founders that are really passionate, and we all know that they've got great ideas and they need that money and that investment to go forward. But I think for me, what I love hearing about, and it really helps me within the workday. So again, this kind of connects back to anybody thinking about writing a book. Each of those kind of imprints along the digital side and framework, they have a link somewhere along the line into my workday area as well. I'm helping a young company at the moment in early, within learning and development, so early careers. And they've done some fantastic work early. And I've actually showed them within the Workday connection what that can do. And they've built some products around the Workday and they've sold to some great customers now. For me, I am a little bit of a betting man as well, Mike. I do like to bet a little bit. And so coming back to those kind of 30, I've betted up to about 30 different startups now that I follow along. And I sit sometimes as non-directors on that or advisors in there. And again, for anybody out there in that angel investing, the 101 to that, it's not always just about that sort of, we need cash. It's also about that experience, right? That advice and guidance, the killer information that you can give and sometimes give that direction, to some. So some of those small companies that I've invested in, I would say that, a good 50% of those are about having a quarterly call with me or even a monthly to say, am I going crazy here? Am I right or wrong? And say, no, there's no crazy, but let me give you or flip it on, give you some direction. So that's the piece, Mike, that I get really a kick out of, is working with those young people in Workday, but those young entrepreneurs as well. It's fantastic.
Well, it all connects. And while you're speaking, it makes me think of when I came across this platform called Go High Level. Have you ever heard of Go High Level?
Yes, I have.
All right,
Yeah.
so Go High,
Yeah.
we built our book marketing CRM based off of Go High Level. So we built it specifically for entrepreneurs. And I would assume, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but when you meet with companies and you do your angel investing, whether it's just the money or whether it's the coaching, however you see fit, uh, the CRM or the processes underneath of it are absolutely crucial, right? People will
Yeah.
rise to their standards, but they'll fall to their standards and processes. And if
They
you don't
will.
have the right CRM, the right programs, you can have the greatest idea in the world. Nothing matters. And I have fallen in love with just SaaS in general because it
Yeah.
completely changed who I am. Now I can help other people grow their businesses because if everything's under one roof, right? And you have customer interactions, you have team members being able to communicate, and everything is visual for the entire team to see, but also all the correspondence is in one area. Everything becomes simplified, allowing you to see extreme
Right.
growth or extreme, I guess, lack of production if something goes off the tracks. So to me, it is Workday pretty much Go High Level on major steroids. Is that what you're saying?
It is, Mike. So I think, look, just coming back on what you said there, which is really interesting because you talk about that process, right? Which is really important because I think on young, linking that to young entrepreneurs, sometimes, there's a lot of ideas as we know, but execution, okay, is one of those steps. Now, one of the things that Workday gives you, which is this, think of it as this fantastic workflow system, okay, within Workday, and I'm just talking about the sort of HR side of it. It does everything from hire to retire. It has somewhere in a region of 400 worldwide sort of processes across every kind of country that you can think of. Imagine that. Imagine that workflow that's given to you that you
Unbelievable.
just have to tick some buttons, and all of a sudden, whether you're recruiting in the US or you're recruiting in the UK or even, recruiting in Australia, those levers are pulled, and guess what? Those processes go through beautifully. And this is the thing, Mike, that Workday have really cornered the market. It's one source for all 16,000 customers. Okay. The processes that are being used, it's the same code set for Facebook as it is for your small entities. The only difference is the little levers that they're pulling inside the software. So that best of breed, that best of class, we're all using it. And the fabulous thing that happens, and this is what really sort of sets the product apart, which is great. Every year they do 2 upgrades, Mike, just 2 upgrades. And every year they put hundreds of new functionality and new value into the product. 4 hours, Mike, to absolutely update every single customer across the world. That is just sensational. So unreal. And guess what? The value that's added, because the way that they develop, and this is, really important and sort of thought leadership for some of the entrepreneurs that you're talking to, and others have had ideas. They listen to the customer, and they really put together the brainstorming around what are the good ideas and what are we hearing out there. So when the product comes back up for an upgrade in that March and September, we're busy sort of sifting through. My practice that I read, Lightwork Global, is looking through. We find all those nuggets that they've done, Mike, and then we go to our customer base and we say, hey, have you seen this? No, we haven't seen it. And then we start down that. So I think, learning off that SaaS you mentioned, Mike, already, is that giving the customer what they want, but giving it in a simplistic way through processes, data, security, those sort of things that make up the wonderful products we use every day. That is the key thing you were just mentioning in there.
And so your book, it seems like there are some people who get it and then either lose their taste for it. It gets complicated. You've simplified it quite a bit. I'm just going through your book here.
Yeah.
And I mean, you break it down into just right out of the gate with what's it called? Post-launch,
Yeah.
wilderness, optimize, transform, thrive. Is it basically, I mean, it constantly evolves, I'm assuming, within your organization, figuring out what's working and what's not. But what is it about this workday that people have fallen in love with, or maybe some of the things they struggle with
Yeah.
that you really highlight in the book that clears things up for them?
Yeah, what I love is that you're right. We created a wonderful diagram for the Workday community called the Workday Journey. And you Mike, thank you for just saying that. They typically go through a number of emotional phases, and that is from
Excitement and then
the
down, right?
excitement. Yeah, that's right, excitement, and then down, and then they go through what we call from the honeymoon period into what we call a desert and a wilderness. Okay,
Got
and
it.
this is typical. So to explain that, and there'll be many people watching here, and listening and tuning into that workday journey. When you're in that first stage of the honeymoon period, when you've got workday in with you and you've got all of these skills in, life feels like it's unbelievable. You're watching all of this stuff might come out of the box. These processes are talking, you're hired to retires and notification. Oh my, it does everything you want. It's beautiful UI in the app, and people are applying for jobs. And that typically, Mike, is what you get is in those first sort of months after you go live, in that post deployment you just mentioned. But what happens, Mike, is that the likes of me and the Workdays of the world and all those wonderful program managers and project and SMEs, they pull away from a project, right? It's then
Mhm.
business as usual. That's when the cracks in the Aston Martin. The analogy I use in the book is quite a good one. That Aston Martin's delivered to you on day one, right? And it's beautiful, right? You get in it, you don't have to put water in it, you don't have to put, even oil in it. You don't do anything. Those engines, you just go out. But after about 6 months, things start to crack. They start to sort of break a little bit. So things that you think, and what a lot of Workday customers experience, and a lot of them will be nodding their heads right now, it's all of a sudden they feel like they're in a desert, a wilderness. An example of a customer that gave me an analogy just recently, Mike, they said, all of a sudden I felt like I was in a boat, but I didn't have a paddle and I didn't know where to go. And that's because a lot of the technology in Workday, Mike, is black box. It's in behind those levers. It's in behind what those settings have been done by your provider. And all of a sudden, you realize that you don't have a story map to uncover those levers. And when legislation changes, it does in the US, a lot and all across the globe, you suddenly realize, oh, I don't know what to do. So we call that a light work, that kind of desert and wilderness. And the difference between the two really is 6 months, those cracks, we call that the desert, thirsty in the desert. And then all of a sudden, you're in a bit of a wilderness. It's almost like that, who chose Workday, the pink elephant in the room, and then the kind of the hiding behind,
Oh, yeah.
doing anything. You've seen that before, right?
Yes.
And then what customers do in that ecosystem is they throw money at it. They bring back in all the big SI partners like PwC and IBM and the big ones, and it's just ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. They don't open up the box for unless you're talking a million or above. And so customers then feel this frustration of, well, we bought this amazing product, and all of a sudden we're seeing some cracks and things join. Surely it's not about this. And so what they do, Mike, they go for a learning. This is where light work really helps in with this advisory partner to come in and say, look, you're not lost in a desert. You're not in a wilderness. We've got a map, we've got a compass, we've got a way of getting you out of that. And what we do, Mike, is we've developed, and the book talks a lot about this as well, a set of assets really that sit around and really help our customers, and what we get feedback all the time is, it only takes, could take weeks or even a month to say, we never even knew how to get out of this desert. You've just shown us a way. You've shown us a roadmap. You've shown us how to do it ourselves. And Mike, what I love about that side of what we do is we give them the tools, and I mentioned already, across that, water or a map or in that sense. And then, do you know what? They stand up themselves, Mike, and then they go on to thrive. And that's the bell curve. That's what we just talked about. You mentioned on that Workday Drive. They start to thrive. They start to get to a vanguard of Workday, and then they re-love and fall back in love with it again, Mike. This is the typical journey for a Workday customer.
Man, you're kind of making me think of a lot of clients that we work with. Obviously, we provide our CRM to many authors, and there's an excitement, there's a drop down,
Yeah.
and then it's either we people sit in different positions and they say, I have the money, just do it for me, or I want to do it myself. And so, you can only help them based off of what they're telling you they need help with. And so how do you help these individuals? Is it really about giving them clarity? Hey, this is what's possible. You asking questions. And I'm going to assume because they might not even know the power of Workday, there are certain people out there that are like, I really don't know how I can use this to my best abilities and really what I can get out of this. Is it up to you to educate them on the possibilities, but also to, maybe find out more about their business to see how you can actually do it a little bit easier? Like, what does that conversation look like? Are you doing training? Are you doing done for you services? What's it look like?
So for us, actually, Mike, the way that we approach this is we've got two things. We've got a portal that we invite our customers into, and in that we've developed over 150 assets that really start to ping on the problems. We have a little saying. We call it. You got 99 problems, but Workday ain't one. And
Yeah,
and
that's
what we
good.
do is out of that, there's some 6 major problems that the clients come to us over and over again, Mike, and that's it could be to do with we're not finding we're getting the Workday user adoption with our business. That's one particular one we get. We find that sometimes that Workday doesn't give us the insights and the dashboards and various things we need. And that's another one that we address. And others are we don't find the business processes, those workflows, they're not as efficient as we thought we would be. So what we do, Mike, is we actually act as a sort of guide for them. So what we say is, first of all, a lot of them feel a little bit confused. That desert analogy, I come back a little bit lost, like, where do we start, Stephen? And what we do is we've got all of these kind of different assets that we do to take them on a kind of a learning journey. The one that's the classic that I talk about in the book quite a lot is sometimes, Mike, that process that you talked about, in the ability to set someone through and design a book and build a book and do all of that, we've got that within Workday. Sometimes, Mike, they don't even have a simple roadmap of what to do next.
Yep.
It's a blurry vision. It's a big product. We don't know where to start, Stephen. Different functionality. So what we do is we say to them, look, for start, and we reassure them, you're not the only one out there. And I think sometimes that's a leveler. So we build that trust and bond, and I think it's a big one, Mike. We always build trust around our customers. Once we've got that trust, what we do is we take them on a small journey of those win-wins. So it could be something small. It could be, we give you an example. Recently, one of the customers we started with, they've had organizational shape problems, so they're not quite sure how to use Workday to actually develop their whole organization. We did a small piece of work where we said, look, let's take you on a journey. We did a proof of concept. We did all of that with them. And then they go, right, we get it. Now we understand it. But along with that, we developed sort of a job aids and our thing that we send with them as well, Mike, so that they felt like they could hold the baby. And we talk a lot about this in the book as well, that you're left holding the baby that's 1 month old, 2 months old, and all of a sudden you've got a 6 month old baby and a 10, and you need to feed that baby, you need to nourish it. So for us, what we do is we use a set of really kind of assets that we use to bring that customer on a journey and take them out. And that's been our success, Mike. The book talks extensively about those sections that you need to do, what good looks like. It also shows case studies in there, and you'll sort of read it, Mike. There's some little lessons we call light bulb moments inside the book where they just give that little bit of clarity to the customer at a different level, that may not be technical, that may be at that kind of thought leader or sort of HR leader in some space, but we reassure them that to take them on a journey.
So one way that you, I guess you could say, excite them to progress down this path is probably helping them see a return on investment, right? Their life gets better after they implement this. Maybe there's something on autopilot, but are there any things that you recommend? Let's just say somebody out there listening who is in this world or maybe is doing something similar to what you're doing, maybe even when it comes to me. What have you noticed that it does give them these moments of, oh, I get it now. Let's keep going. Let's keep progressing. Let me keep feeding this machine because as this machine gets stronger, my life gets better. Any insight or takeaways that you've learned within this business?
Yeah, and it's a good one that you mentioned this one particularly. So one of the wow factors that comes back from the community of Workday, whether it be on LinkedIn or YouTube, is one of the stats that we share, and Workday openly share this, is that I mentioned to you early that the upgrades that come every year, this is a premium product, the Aston Martin I mentioned, so you're getting all the bells and whistles that come with it. Each year, Workday release somewhere in the region of 140 to 200 new little features that they add to each version. So every March and September. Here's the real killer, Mike. So you've paid over £1 million for a license for this product, okay? And here's the killer. Only 20% of that 16,000 customers worldwide take those upgrades.
Oh my
Not
God.
not one. Only 20% takes some of those 140 to 200 function. And one of the reasons they don't do it, Mike, and this is it's one that comes to us all the time, is that what they don't do is prepare themselves for those upgrades. Don't look in the box to say, hey, look at this that's coming along. This could be fabulous for our business, whether you're in medical or private equity or insurance or any other. This is really going to make a difference. We should go and take this to our roadmap and to our business and speak to our leaders about implementing this. They just don't do it, Mike. One of our assets is we talk about release management. We take them on a sort of 1 month journey when it comes out in August or it comes out in February to say, hey, what are you going to take? This is brilliant. What about go to this? So it's simple little things for the listeners, Mike. The one thing I would say is that look at those upgrades, look at the value that's in them, and get yourself some governance and a roadmap around taking an advantage. There's win-wins. There's normally time or cost or some quality that's part of it, Mike, that will be inside those releases. 20% of
The
those
Pareto
16,000.
principle. I mean, the 80
Yeah.
20 rule applies
Yeah.
even to just obviously you're a successful company. If you're paying £1
Yeah.
million for this program, you're a successful company. You're doing
Yeah.
something right.
Yeah.
However, you're still telling me there's an upper echelon of individuals, companies, leaders who are saying, let's make the most of what has been given to us, right? So
Yeah.
what is it about those 20%? And my only assumption, maybe I'm wrong about this, is that they're hungrier, but also they're more nimble. Leadership is more about, let's beat our competitors. Let's take advantage of every opportunity. What is it about the 20% that you've noticed?
The one thing, and it's a really great question. Again, just great questions coming out. So I think the difference is that sometimes, and this is a really important thing, is that I think some people within organizations sometimes see back office systems as, well, it's only a HR system, it's only a payroll system, it's only, they sort of devalue that back office piece, and once it's in place, they think, well, it's adding no real value to our bottom line and our business. That thinking is completely wrong. The 20% are not only revving that Aston Martin to death and getting every piece of juice as they squeeze that lemon, out of it. What they're doing is they're pushing back the value to the business. Now, I'll give you an example. What I've seen in one of our customers recently, it's been fabulous. They had an adoption issue, Mike, where they found that only around about 40 or 50% of their line managers, 6,000 line managers, so we're talking a big organization, were really seeing the value of Workday. They did what's called a voice of the employee, and it came back and said, no, we don't see it at Workday. As they drilled down deeper, one of the factors behind it is they said, hey, we don't get results. We don't see results. It's transactional. We've got all our teams in there. We love that. They book their absence and their leave and all those things, but we're not getting anything back. So we did a piece of work around delivering what's called a line manager. Again, standard out of the box, standard part of this 20% and this upgrade. And the take up of that new piece of information, we've seen a spike in those line managers up to nearly 5,500 entering Workday, because all of a sudden, Mike, they had a piece of valuable insight that they needed for decision making across their different functions they were working in, especially operational and sales. So it was a great question you asked. That 20% is always looking at how the product elements can benefit the end user. Okay, and the customer, their customer, and they're looking for those, and that's what we see all the time. The people who are really at the vanguard of Workday, come back to are checking and looking and implementing all. And some of these things are pennies to implement. Other ththings cost more money, but some of the value behind them is looking, and they have a passion for it. So that's the difference in that 20%. It's it's revving it and getting the passion to do it.
Yeah, you're making me think of some systems that we added to our company. And I was like, well, how does that really, I can always worry about that later, but how does it really affect everything? Well, any little advantage I have or any type of implementation that really gives me the clearest picture that's the most up to date with what's happening within my company, it allows me to sleep better at night. It allows me to make better decisions. And so maybe it is up for whether it's the team leadership or even people at Workday to express how this will benefit their life. And then once it's made known to them, oh, wait a second, now I see how important it is to do X, Y, and Z consistently. And I get excited about certain things that I never used to be excited about when it comes to spreadsheets and even profit and loss statements, and having a bookkeeper even involved that handles everything. Like I used to say, well, it's not that important. Maybe it isn't for the startup in the first year, but you're talking about massive companies, complicated procedures everywhere. And if you have a little bit more clarity than the competitor down the road, you can move faster. And I think speed is the ultimate, I guess, chess move in business. So what you're doing is really saving time and giving people clear decisions that they can make. Am I right?
That's absolutely right. And just to share, another example which is coming out in market. This is new information, Mike. So a lot of the Workday community won't know this, but again, what you were saying about the speed, which is really important. To give you sort of a little example of something, people move around. We've seen the talent on, the war on talent at the moment, as we know, and about how there's a migration of people moving, because they want better kind of working environments, hybrid working, all the different things we're seeing. We're seeing, for HR, it's quite revolutionary the way we're seeing that working. One of the features, I come back to the sort of 20% about it, is that there's a very complex workflow. One of the processes called change organization in Workday. Change organization, Mike, is about moving you. Say, for instance, you're moving around or you're doing something in the business around. There was a recent stat that came out that within the Workday ecosystem, 27 million transactions from those customers go through that one process per year. And each one of them might take 7 minutes to complete. So,
Oh my
so
God.
7 minutes. I mean, I'm not a mathematician. I can't believe, but that's a lot of time, right? A lot of time in the ecosystem. Now, here's the thing. Workday, being the typical company they are, they've got around this problem by introducing new templates. They're called change organization templates to speed that process up. Now, Mike, that's coming out in September, right? So 16,000 Workday customers are listening to this. Come back to the 20%. That speed and efficiency you talk about, if they adopt that change, okay, and even in their organization, let's say some of these big organizations are doing 100,000 transactions in this at 7 minutes. Even a small change like that, the difference in efficiency and speed that you mentioned, that's just one example.
You shave off a minute, it's life changing. Am I right?
Right?
Think
Yeah.
about the cost savings alone. Think about that. That's a game changer for the business. And on a huge timeline, like, or a huge I guess sample size that you're talking
Yeah.
about within these organizations, it's night and day, right? And they will see it right away. So for a smaller organization, a minute or two might not matter. You're talking about these insane
A
companies,
million
and
minutes.
and and
Yeah.
and I don't know if you're able to share some of the companies that use Workday, but I'm assuming you've been on some calls with some major players within these big organizations. So anybody that
Yeah.
you could share with us?
Well, yeah. I mean, to call out to again, I come back to that Fortune 500. So some of the big players, as I told you before, are Facebook and Google. But one of the areas that I'm particularly proud of at the moment is working, and it's been an exciting area for me recently with our customers. So Netflix, Disney,
Wow.
all of these, and it's an interesting one that you mentioned there about who's the 20%, Mike. Um, interesting, that the media companies are really squeezing Workday to get it what they want. Their production systems are working with their workforces, right? So imagine, someone like Netflix with the production studios they've got working with the third parties. They're using Workday. Netflix is a particularly good customer with Workday. They are taking that full, to edge. Others that I've seen that are really working really well as well. There's some of the smaller companies like Technicolor Studios and others like that. The reason why I'm mentioning the focus on the media side, it's been really kind of one of those areas that I've been focused on. I think others that I can share with you as well. Some of the big private equity companies out there that you know in market. We're working with some of the smaller ones at the moment. Have been. They are really. You come back to that word you used, Mark. Nimble, and efficient, and they want to get the very best out, and they want to, so an example I'll give you for one in private equity that we've been working on, they've got a 5 billion trust that's at the moment. They're buying 100 companies at the moment. They're out there buying 100 companies inside one of their new trusts that lasts for about 5 years. And for anybody that doesn't know about private equity, it's really simple. I give you a billion, 5 years later, you give me 2 billion back. That's the type of, area. What they're doing, they're cleverly using Workday now to put all of the C-suite of those 100 onto Workday and then managing those businesses through Workday. This is small private equity doing this at the moment. So, Mike, you're absolutely right. You've got to get on the train. Otherwise, come back to what you just said there 5 minutes ago. We're talking about the difference between you being, a superstar company and getting on and putting the bottom line to not getting on it. And, don't get us even started about where Workday's going with AI,
Oh,
we're
I
coming
was
to that
about to
bit.
bring
So,
that up too.
yeah, so
I was about to. Yes. Yes.
yeah. So the transactional side of it, to get your house in order, and I'll come back to those Workday, and you quite rightly say, your data, your security, and your processes that you're using at the moment, you need to have good efficiency, quality in those areas. You need to get that foundation right, Mike. You need the Aston Martin's engine singing, right, before you can do 200 mile an hour in it. Okay, so that to me right now, come back to those customers, and they're out there and their variety. Talk to the Workday community, Mark. I'll come back to they're all in the community, whether it be Coca-Cola that you need to talk to, or the BBC, for instance, here that in the UK. They're all talking and they'll share Those customers have got to get out there and start talking about what other customers are doing different, or talk to Lightwork, about what are you seeing in the different industries? What is happening in media, what's happening in insurance, what's happening in health. We can tell, we can share and tell.
Yeah, and I think with technology, like you said, you alluded to AI and how much that's changing the game. People have no idea. Yes, it might be easier now to start a business or maybe grow a business, but in order to play at the highest level, you need to take advantage of all of the bells and whistles you've been given. And there are programs like Workday, or whether it's Go High Level or AI coming down the pike. Your competitors are going to use it, which gives them the ability to just move faster, and they're going to blow by you. So if you don't take advantage of these things, it's almost like you're going to be a dinosaur, and you won't be able to find tribe members to work for you or with you. You won't find maybe investments because they're going to see that you're kind of behind in the times when it comes to your technology,
Yeah.
and your adoption rate's going to be lower because people are going to maybe not utilize all of this stuff that you have that might be great, but it's just not as good as some of the programs like this. So my God, if you don't take advantage of it, you
Oh,
are sorely mistaken that you are going to be left behind. And it could be with anything, the way I look at it. Guys, if you're listening to this, maybe you're not going to buy Workday, but listen to what he's saying. These people who are running these massive companies are utilizing all of these tricks, right? And if they're doing it, you better do something to try to keep up or to try to stay afloat, because other people out there in your industry are utilizing it, and they're going to win. They're going to win over the customers. They're going to win over the people who want a job. And you just need to play the game at the highest level mentally. Think like an entrepreneur, but stay active in trying to pursue what all the bells and whistles of AI and technology and geniuses are creating, and use it
mm.
to your advantage.
Absolutely, Mike. I'd really iterate that with the growth already. To share with some of the Workday customers, we're seeing some amazing things at Lightwork with Workday AI already. And connecting Workday and some of the results that are coming out early stage, where it's looking across those data sets in those models. They're eye-opening, and the difference between giving you that competitive edge. You just mentioned that right there. We're seeing companies already that are way beyond that transactional side. So we go back to that 20%, they're way beyond and are inside, what we call the next step. We've got a particular model that we use about, rising up through, the different analytics that you've got from, your operational reporting to eventually get into that vanguard of AI, and benchmarking yourself across other industries. Imagine that. Imagine at times you see whether your hire to retire process, for instance, is better than the competitors. If you're not in using that AI information or starting to, plug that in, you're already behind. And I come back to a lot of the customers I say right now, the basics need to be put in very quickly. We need to get past those foundations and up into the echelons of that AI straight away. We're seeing that across the industry. We're seeing the people who really are going to take this to the next level. And we've all been talking about data. Okay, we know that that's the oil of the 21st century. We said it many a time, right? But I think the key behind it now, if you're not across that data, Mike, you're not looking at it. I'll give you an example. Just one of the things that we're working on a lot at the moment, and we see described. We will talk about diversity, equality. And making sure that inclusiveness is around. DEI, they call it. It's so important in the health and well-being and the structure of your. To give you an example recently of an AI piece that we were working on. We had a bit of a situation where we were noticing some trends of hiring in different countries that were not really balancing an equality around men and women across that. And just to tell you, some of your listeners that are on there, we narrowed that down inside some of the insights in AI to find that there was one particular manager in Hong Kong who was only hiring men. Can you
Wow.
believe that? Can you, in this day and
Wow.
age that we live in? But that type of insight inside Workday was quickly then picked up by the HR business, and the protocols and everything was put in place. So this is the type of thing we're talking about. It's not just to do with, the competitive bottom line and revenue. We're talking about the well-being of your organization. the diversity, all of those things now are key to the operational reporting and insights that you're doing, to be robust. So, there's so much in this we could talk about, that data and AI, but it's fascinating. I'm just so blessed to be in a place where I'm looking and feeling it, and growing it. So, it's brilliant.
Well, guys, his book is called Making Light Work of Workday. And what is the best way to get a hold of you? So let's just say they pick up this book. Obviously, there's contact information. Are you easy to find on LinkedIn or social media, or is there a website you recommend?
Yeah, so we for a lot of the Workday people and listening want to reach out to us. So we have our lightwork.global LinkedIn page. We also have lightwork.global as our web page on there. So for us a little bit, we love the LinkedIn community. My name is Stephen Slevin. You can find me there, and people to welcome to reach out and tell about their journeys as well and where they're going and advice. But yeah, Mike, to reach us, it's best on our website, which is www.lightwork.global.
Lightwork.global. Guys, he obviously loves what he does and he knows his stuff. So if you want to be educated by somebody who has a true passion for this program, he's the guy. So, guys, check out his book on Amazon, Making Light Work of Workday, Strategies for Unleashing the Power of Workday. Stephen Slevin, thank you so much for being here, man. I love talking about SaaS and any type of CRMs and operation standard procedures that really amplify the business and obviously the workplace. So thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life.